We've been trained to treat vegetables like disposable plants. Plant, harvest, rip out, repeat. Every single year. But there's a class of vegetables that grows like trees. Woody stems, deep roots, harvestable for years. Some of them can replace store-bought greens almost permanently. One of these kept entire communities alive through drought and war. By the end, you'll have a short list you can plant once and harvest for the long haul. Welcome to Buried Nature Archive. We cover practical plants, forgotten food systems, and the kind of gardening knowledge that makes you less dependent on stores. Subscribe if you want low-effort, high-yield plants that keep producing year after year, because once you understand tree vegetables, your whole grocery mindset changes. Quick safety notes before we get into the list. Some of these plants have leaves or tubers that must be cooked because raw parts can be irritating or toxic. Identification matters. Don't eat anything you can't confidently name. Climate matters too. Some of these are true tropical perennials, and some are cold hardy and will laugh at winter. And this is food education, not medical advice. So what do I mean by tree vegetables? Not literally trees every time. Think of them as vegetables that behave like trees. You establish them once, they build structure, woody stems, crowns, big roots, or perennial vines, and then they keep paying you back with edible leaves, shoots, tubers, pods, or flowers for years. They fall into a few clean buckets. First, woody shrubs that give you greens like spinach. Second, vines that regrow season after season and climb like living curtains. Third, perennial roots and tubers that resprout from the ground even if the top dies back. Fourth, leaf trees where the vegetable is basically the foliage, harvested like you'd harvest kale. And fifth, long-lived brassicas and greens that function like perennial hedges. Here's why these plants beat annual veggies, and it's not even close. Less labor because you're not replanting and tearing up soil every season. More resilience because deep roots handle drought and chaos better than shallow-rooted annuals. More nutrition because perennial leafy greens are often mineral-dense. Better food security because you're not one frost or one missed planting window away from no greens this year. And better economics because once these are established, they can slash how often you buy greens. If you only changed one thing in your garden, switching from annual greens to perennial greens is the highest ROI move. Now we're going into the core list. I'm going to give you the common name, the Latin name, what it's also known as, the grow zone, what you eat, how you use it, and the one safety or caution that actually matters. Some of these are absolute monsters in warm climates. Some work in cool climates if you grow them in pots and overwinter them indoors. And some are cold hardy perennials that can live outside for years. Number 1 is Chaya, also called tree spinach. The Latin name is Snidoscolus aconitiefolius. Zones matter here. It's reliably perennial in USDA zones 9 through 11. And in zone 8, you may keep it alive with protection, but most people in cooler zones grow it in container plants when winters bite. This is the poster child for vegetable that behaves like a tree. You eat the leaves like spinach. The flavor is mild and green, and it's fantastic in stews, soups, scrambled eggs, or sautéed with garlic. Nutritionally, it's famous for being dense. Protein for a green, plus minerals like calcium and iron, and vitamins like A and C. Growing is easy. It's usually propagated from cuttings, it handles heat, it shrugs off pests, and once it's rooted, it just keeps going. The safety note is non-negotiable. Do not eat chaya leaves raw. They must be cooked, and people traditionally boil them before use. If you want spinach that grows like a shrub, this is it. This is spinach with a trunk. Number 2 is Moringa, commonly called the drumstick tree or horseradish tree. The Latin name is Moringa oleifera. It's perennial outdoors in zones 9 to 11, and it can survive in warmer parts of zone 8 with serious protection, but most people in cooler zones grow it in pots and overwinter it. You can eat the leaves, young pods, and even use seeds for oil depending on what you're doing. For beginners, the leaves are the simplest. Cook them like spinach or toss small amounts into soups. Nutritionally, Moringa is a heavyweight. Vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants are the main selling points, and it's one of those plants cultures have leaned on for centuries. Growing is straightforward in heat. It grows fast, tolerates drought once established, and handles poor soil better than you'd expect. The safety note is simple. Don't treat it like a miracle drug. It's food. Eat reasonable amounts and introduce it slowly if you're not used to it. Moringa is a tree that feeds you like a vegetable. That's the whole trick. Number 3 is katuk, also called sweetleaf bush. The Latin name is Snidosopus androgynus. This is a true warm climate plant, best in zones 9 to 11. You eat the young leaves and shoots, and it's popular across Southeast Asia as a backyard green because it just keeps producing. The flavor is mild, slightly nutty, and it works cooked into stir-fries, soups, or omelets. Nutritionally, it's valued as a leafy green with strong micronutrients. Growing profile, it's a shrub, it likes warmth, it can take partial shade, and once it settles in, harvesting encourages bushier growth. The safety note matters here. Avoid raw katuk juice and avoid extreme overconsumption. There were real reports of lung issues tied to heavy raw juice use. Cook it and use it like a food, not a craze. Katuk is what people mean when they say lazy gardener spinach. Number 4 is tree kale, often sold as perennial kale or tree collard. The common species is usually Brassica oleracea in a perennial form, often called Brassica oleracea variety acephala types, and there are also perennial brassicas sold under names like Dobbinton's kale. Zones, typically USDA zones 7 to 10, with performance depending on the variety and winter severity. This is one of the best entries for people who aren't tropical. You harvest leaves continually, like kale, and the plant forms a woody stem over time. Flavor is kale, sometimes milder after cold. Nutrition is classic brassica nutrition, vitamins A, C, K, minerals, and that real food density. Growing is easy. Full sun, decent soil, consistent water to establish, then it becomes a leaf machine. The safety note is for brassicas. Can be hard on digestion in huge amounts for some people, so cook if you need to. This is the closest thing to an edible hedge that replaces store greens for years. Number 5 is Malabar spinach. Latin name, Bacella alba for the green stem type, and Bacella rubra for the red stem type. Zones, it's perennial in zones 9 to 11, and in cooler zones, it's grown as a warm season annual, or in containers. You eat the leaves and tender stems. Texture is the headline. It's slightly mucilaginous, think okra. In soups and stews, that's a feature, not a bug, because it thickens broth. Nutrition is solid. Vitamins A and C are the big ones, plus hydration because it's a water-rich green. Growing profile. It loves heat, climbs aggressively, and will outproduce standard spinach once summer hits. Safety note. If you hate the okra texture, chop smaller and cook it into soups where it disappears. This one turns a fence into a food source. Number 6 is Okinawa spinach, also called purple spinach in some places. Latin name, Genura bicolor. Zones, best in zones 9 to 11, and a container plant in cooler zones. You eat the leaves. Young leaves can be used lightly, but it's commonly cooked. Flavor is mild, and the appeal is the plant's hardiness and antioxidant reputation. Growing is simple. Take cuttings, root them, give partial shade in brutal heat, keep moisture moderate, and it becomes a steady leafy producer. Safety note. If you're new to it, cook it first. Don't treat it like a salad base day one. This is a perennial leafy green that behaves like a living houseplant you can eat. Number 7 is longevity spinach, often called sambung nyawa. Latin name, Genura procumbens. Zones, generally 9 to 11, and again, containers for cooler climates. You eat the leaves. Young leaves can be eaten raw in some traditions. Older leaves are often cooked. Flavor is mild to green, not loud. Nutritionally, it's associated with antioxidants and traditional wellness use, which is why it got that longevity nickname. Growing profile. It spreads as a low plant, roots easily from cuttings, likes moisture and part shade, and peeps producing. Safety note, moderation and common sense. It's food, not a cure-all. If you want a perpetual green you can propagate by snapping off a piece and sticking it in soil, this is your plant. Number 8 is Egyptian spinach, also known as jute mallow, and in the context of cuisine, tied to mulukia or mulukia. Latin name, Corchorus olatorius. Zone-wise, this is typically grown as a warm season annual in many places, but in zones 9 to 11, it can behave more like a self-sustaining plant through reseeding, and in the tropics, it can feel almost perennial in practice. You eat the leaves, usually cooked. Texture again is slightly thickening. It's famous for that silky, slippery broth quality in stews. Nutrition is strong for a leafy green, and it's historically important because it's fast to produce and reliable in hot climates. Growing, heat lover, full sun, decent moisture. Safety note, cook it. If you don't like the texture, pair with other greens or use smaller quantities in soups. This is one of those feeds people when times are bad plants. Number 9 is taro, Latin name Colocasia esculenta. Zones, perennial outdoors in zones 9 to 11, and it can be grown in pots and overwintered in cooler zones if you treat it like a tender perennial. You eat the corms in many cuisines, and in a lot of cultures you also eat the leaves. But here's the hard rule. Taro leaves must be cooked to reduce irritation from calcium oxalate crystals. The corms are a staple starch. The leaves are a leafy vegetable. Growing, it likes water, it thrives in wet soils, and it can make a massive amount of biomass. Safety note, don't mess around with raw leaves. Cook thoroughly. This is a one plant gives both greens and roots situation. Quick reality check before we go further. If you live in a cold zone, you're not disqualified. Half of these still work. You just grow them in pots and overwinter them, or you treat them as warm season producers and propagate cuttings to restart fast. The whole point of tree vegetables is that the plant doesn't have to die just because your winter exists. Number 10 is yacon, Latin name Smallanthus sanctifolius. Zones, generally perennial in zones 8 to 11, with dieback in colder winters. In colder zones, you dig and store tubers like you would dahlias. You eat the tubers, crisp, juicy, sweet, more like a refreshing fruit starch hybrid than a potato. Growing, tall plant, looks like a sunflower relative, big leaves, hides the food underground. Nutrition angle, it's known for prebiotic-type sugars and a lower glycemic reputation compared to many starchy tubers, and it's often used for syrups. Safety note, start small if your gut isn't used to it. Prebiotic-heavy foods can humble you. This is sweet snack growing under your feet. Number 11 is scarrot, Latin name Siam Caesarum. Zones, typically 5 to 9. This is one of the cold climate winners. You eat the roots, sweet, old school, historically grown in Europe before potatoes took over. Growing profile, perennial root that forms a clump of multiple slender roots. It likes moisture and decent soil, but it's not fragile. Nutrition flex, it's more carbohydrate than leaf, but it's a real perennial food crop. Safety note, harvesting is work because the roots are smaller than modern supermarket expectations, but the flavor is the payoff. This is a plant once dig food for years root. Number 12 is cranberry hibiscus, also called false roselle. Latin name, Hibiscus acetosella. Zones, usually perennial in zones 9 to 11, and it's sometimes grown as an annual elsewhere. You eat the leaves, tangy, sour, almost citrus-like. People use it in salads in small amounts or cooked into dishes. Nutrition flex, leafy green with vitamins and antioxidants. Growing profile, warm weather, shrub-like growth, can get ornamental and edible at once. Safety note, because it's acidic, don't make it your only green, and don't overdo it if you're sensitive. This is salad leaf meets ornamental shrub. Number 13 is edible hibiscus greens, often called bele or South Pacific hibiscus spinach in some traditions, depending on the exact species and local naming. A commonly referenced edible leafy hibiscus is Abelmoschus manahat, often called ibeca or bele. Zones, best in zones 9 to 11, sometimes 8 with protection. You eat young leaves, usually cooked, and the texture can be somewhat thickening like okra relatives. Nutrition is strong, leafy green density with vitamins and minerals. Growing profile, shrub form, heat-loving, can get tall and heavy. Safety note, wind can knock it around. Stake it if needed, and cook leaves if you don't like the texture. This is a serious warm climate green source. Number 14 is Cuban oregano, also called Mexican mint or Spanish thyme, depending on where you are. Latin name, Plectothrantz amboinicus. Zones, perennial in zones 9 to 11, and an easy indoor pot plant elsewhere. This is more herb than bulk green, but it earns a place because it's perennial, edible, medicinal in folk use, and ridiculously easy. You use the leaves for seasoning, strong, savory, oregano-like, great in beans, stews, and meat dishes. Growing profile, propagates from cuttings, tolerates neglect, loves warmth. Safety note, strong flavor means small amounts go far. This is the perennial kitchen herb that never leaves. Number 15 is holy basil, also called tulsi. Latin name, Ocimum tenuiflorum. Zones, perennial in zones 10 to 11, and often grown as an annual or container plant elsewhere. You use leaves for tea, cooking, and oils. Flavor is clove-like and spicy. Nutrition and wellness angle. It's famous in traditional systems for stress support and immune support. But keep it grounded. It's a useful herb, not magic. Growing profile. Easy from seed, loves warmth, and can be kept alive indoors. Safety note. If you're pregnant, on medication, or doing anything medically complex, don't treat herbal tea like a prescription. This is the perennial household herb category. Number 16 is butterfly pea. Latin name, Clitoria ternata. Zones, perennial in zones 9 to 11, and it's grown as an annual elsewhere. You can use flowers for tea and natural color, and in some uses, the young leaves and shoots are edible. It's not a bulk green replacement, but it's a perennial edible support plant that gives function beyond calories. Growing profile. It's a vine, climbs, likes sun, tolerates heat, and fixes nitrogen as a legume. Safety note. Don't assume every pretty flower is edible. This one is widely used, but still confirm identification. This is edible vine that pays you back in tea and soil. If you only plant one tree vegetable this year, here's the decision logic. Choose the one that matches your climate and the one you'll actually cook, because the fastest way to fail is growing a plant you don't know how to use. Now we sort this into a simple choose your climate plan so nobody feels left out. If you're in warm zones, think USDA 9 to 11. You can build a literal edible hedge system. Chaya, Moringa, katuk, longevity spinach, Okinawa spinach, edible hibiscus types, cranberry hibiscus, taro, Malabar spinach. You can run these like a backyard grocery department. If you're in cooler zones, you still win. You just use containers and overwintering for the tropical stuff, and you lean harder on the cold hardy perennials. Tree kale and perennial brassicas are huge for you. Scarlet is huge for you. Sorrel, Rumex acetosa, is another cold hardy perennial green that many people use like a lemony spinach, typically in zones 3 to 9. But keep in mind it's high in oxalate acid and is often better cooked and used in moderation. And you can still grow Malabar spinach as a summer vine that outperforms regular spinach in heat. This isn't about having perfect weather. It's about choosing plants that don't restart their life every spring.
So here's the grocery replacement plan. Keep it simple. Pick 3 plants. 1 leaf tree or shrub for steady greens, 1 vine spinach for volume, and 1 hardy perennial that survives your winter. Plant them this month or this season. Learn 1 safe cooking method for each, and track how often you stop buying greens. If you can stop buying greens for even 2 months, the garden already paid for itself. And don't overcomplicate it. You're not trying to become a botanist overnight. You're building a system where the garden keeps working even when you don't feel like working. Drop a comment with your USDA zone or your country and tell me which one you'd actually grow first. And subscribe to Buried Nature Archive because the next episode can go in 3 directions depending on what you want. The best tree vegetables for cold climates, the fastest leaf tree to harvest, or 5 tree vegetables that survived neglect like they were built for hard times. Remember, annual gardens feed you once. Perennial gardens feed you on autopilot. The most powerful garden isn't the prettiest, it's the one that keeps producing when life gets hard. Stop planting like you're renting your soil. Plant like you plan to stay.